From the GRAYMAN briefing, this is a summary of recent developments regarding the Second Amendment, cybersecurity, protests, supply chain disruptions, national security, law and order, free speech, censorship, government oversight, and more.
For the second quarter of 2025, this is Update 11 to the GRAYMAN briefing's summary of recent developments. Across the nation, localized developments include agro-terrorism plot uncovered at a university in Michigan, anti-squatting and hotel eviction laws signed in Florida, SCOTUS allows AR-15 ban to stand in Maryland, and magazine ban in Rhode Island, reverse discrimination lawsuit revived in Ohio, ICE protest blocks hospital access in Arizona, anti-Trump and anti-ICE demonstrations erupt in California, Minnesota, New York, Ohio, Washington, Florida, and D.C., with Antifa and pro-Ukrainians protesting in Kansas. Anti-ICE protests spread to major cities including Atlanta, Philadelphia, New York City, San Francisco, Houston, Chicago, Boston, Portland, Maine, Salt Lake City, and Hartford. Military parade and street closures planned in D.C. with Reagan Airport flight disruptions in Virginia. Also, Florida law banning children from social media has been blocked. On a national level, FBI targets counterintelligence threats from Chinese nationals. Trump administration restricts entry from multiple countries over national security concerns. House passes a bill to ban state-level AI regulation for 10 years. DOJ and FTC pursue antitrust lawsuits against major tech firms. Constitutional Carry Reciprocity Act, or H.R. 38, introduced with mixed support. Mass anti-Trump protests planned in over 1,500 cities nationwide. Federal authorities investigate coordinating funding behind these violent protests. Marine and National Guard units deployed under the federal command to support ICE operations in L.A. Also, 49 million cellular customers have their Social Security numbers leaked online. Let's begin with the Second Amendment. On June 2nd, the Supreme Court declined to hear cases challenging Maryland's AR-15 style rifle ban and Rhode Island's limit on magazines over 10 rounds. The decision lets those laws stand. Conservative justices in the Supreme Court failed to unite, allowing the bans that were passed in 2013 and 2022 to remain in place. Gun right advocates expressed disappointment over missed judicial review of the Second Amendment rights. Moving on, H.R. 38 would create national concealed carry reciprocity, allowing legal gun owners to carry across state lines. However, the bill requires documentation, limits carry to one firearm and its included magazine, and restricts carry in sensitive areas. Supporters such as the Firearms Policy Coalition back the idea but warn the language is flawed. They seek amendments to broaden protection, reduce ID penalties, avoid criminalizing permit holders, and allowances for spare mags or backup firearm. The bill has passed committee but is not yet passed either chamber. Now moving into the current events briefing. A court ruled in Ames v. Ohio that a heterosexual woman alleging job bias can pursue her case under Title VII. Previously, majority group plaintiffs needed extra proof of bias, called background circumstances, while minority groups, such as blacks and Hispanics, did not need any additional proof. Ames claimed she lost her promotions to less qualified LGBT staff. The court unanimously decided she deserves equal standing in court. The case now returns to a lower court for trial. Washington, D.C. will host a massive parade and festival on June 14th to celebrate the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary. Over 6,000 troops and 150 military vehicles will participate, with events including flyovers, an airborne jump, and fireworks. Reagan Airport will temporarily close during the event. Critics claim that the $25 million celebration doubles as a birthday event for Trump, and protest groups plan demonstrations nationwide the same day, possibly to disrupt the parade. The FTC and DOJ filed lawsuits against Meta, Apple, and Google over allegations of monopolies in social media, smartphones, and advertising. This comes despite prior support from tech CEOs to Trump. The lawsuit shows Trump's administration isn't shielding major donors from regulatory scrutiny. Relations with Musk's X are also reportedly strained. These cases could reshape tech regulation moving forward. Let's go ahead and shift now into the cybersecurity briefing. A 2021 AT&T data breach resurfaced with more dangerous implications, exposing names, birth dates, social security numbers, and phone numbers for 49 million customers. The repackaged leak appeared on a cybercrime forum and is highly exploitable. Though some linked it to a 2024 Snowflake breach, experts confirm it's the original breach in a new form. AT&T urged customers to monitor accounts. The full leak reportedly includes over 86 million records. So in short, the repackaging provides one-click links to 49 million social security numbers. Let's look at the government oversight briefing now. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act includes a moratorium preventing states from regulating AI, overriding local laws. It provides $500 million for AI adoption in government systems. The bill faces opposition in the Senate from over 140 advocacy groups. Tech companies back the bill, citing the need for a unified national framework. Critics argue it allows unchecked abuse of AI and weakens privacy and civil rights protections. Let's look at the terrorism brief now. 2 Chinese nationals were arrested for smuggling a toxic biological agent. So it appears to be a fungus. It was smuggled into the University of Michigan, their lab there. The agent can destroy wheat, barley, corn, and rice crops, and also causes vomiting, liver damage, and reproductive defects in humans and livestock. It was hidden in shoe soles and textbooks, and is tied to the Chinese military-affiliated research program. A third suspect was also identified. Federal agencies warned that the act showed vulnerabilities in the U.S.'s biosecurity system. The FBI warned that the incident highlights these vulnerabilities both to border and biosecurity systems, calling it an act of, quote, calling the act a, quote, direct threat to American agriculture. This comes as visa revocation policies target Chinese students studying sensitive fields. And let's go ahead and shift into the national security brief. A new executive order bans or limits immigration from countries associated with terrorism or hostile acts, including Iran, Libya, and Somalia. Exemptions are made for green card holders and national interest entries. The order aims to prevent foreign exploitation of immigration laws. Trump emphasized national security as the basis for the action, and the administration framed the policy as a target approach, not a general travel ban. So we've got a lot today in civil unrest. The GRAYMAN briefing has put out a number of updates, especially on the LA riots. Keep in mind, I'm going to basically give a summary from what the GRAYMAN briefing wrote, but if you want to see their sources and their full coverage, join at graymanbriefing.com. So let's go ahead and begin. Civil unrest and extremist actions were reported in multiple states. In Tucson, Arizona, activists blocked access to a hospital and shouted at staff to, quote, not allow ICE to invade our sanctuaries and to protect our immigrant families. In Washington, D.C., on May 15th, a transgender extremist identifying as a woman was arrested for online threats to assassinate Representative Nancy Mace, writing, I'm going to assassinate Representative Nancy Mace with a gun, and I'm being 100%. Also in D.C., RFK Jr. was interrupted during a Senate hearing by activists chanting, RFK kills people with hate. And Senator Marco Rubio's testimony was disrupted by pro-Palestinian clergy and Code Pink members yelling, Gaza must live and no more weapons to Israel. In Minnesota, 2 separate incidents occurred. First, left-leaning groups protested against Republican efforts to halt taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants. Later, a social media post from a state senator there falsely claimed federal immigration raids were underway, prompting hundreds of Antifa and anti-ICE protesters to violently assault law enforcement officers during an unrelated search warrant operation. In Seattle, Washington, a May Day USA Christian worship event was surrounded by Antifa, transgender activists, and far-left groups who shoved mothers and children. Several counter-protesters were arrested, while the mayor defended the trans actions and said that the event was provoked reactions. In Largo, Florida, a 33-year-old female activist assaulted a 72-year-old man wearing a MAGA hat. She fled the scene and then assaulted a police officer before being arrested. In Dayton, Ohio, anti-NATO and pro-Palestinian marchers carried signs condemning Israel and U.S. foreign policy. In Wichita, Kansas, pro-Ukrainian and Antifa-aligned activists staged a demonstration with banners reading 86 Fascism, shouted 8647, and Love Not Hate. They also displayed a life-size caricature of Trump impaled with blades. Finally, in New York City, anti-ICE activists clashed with police outside the immigration court, pushing through barricades and leading to the arrest of 23 individuals. Officers deployed OC spray to disperse the crowd. These events collectively represent a coordinated escalation in civil disobedience, political protest, and physical confrontation. And now let's move into the two major events that should probably be on everyone's radar. Widespread anti-ICE riots erupted in Los Angeles and the surrounding areas following federal immigration enforcement actions. Protesters, primarily aligned with Antifa, the Party for Socialism and Liberation, and Answer Coalition, along with other far-left groups, mobilized across social media platforms such as Reddit and Blue Sky, coordinating what were described as emergency protests. Demonstrations quickly escalated into violent riots, involving over 20,000 participants, although the majority of violent actions were conducted by fewer than 1,000. Acts included blocking the 101 freeway for over 10 hours, looting, trapping federal agents inside buildings and under bridges, launching fireworks, using cinder blocks, hammers, and wrenches as weapons, setting vehicles and businesses on fire. A police search uncovered a car filled with hand tools believed to be staged for violence. Protesters also spray-painted messages such as "Dead Cops," "Burn prisons," and "Abolish ICE" throughout downtown LA. City infrastructure was overwhelmed. 13-plus intersections were barricaded or blocked by rioters. Autonomous vehicles, including Waymos, were torched. The LAPD, while initially claiming protests were peaceful, at least their public affairs office did, they simultaneously issued multiple unlawful assembly declarations and citywide TAC alerts, requiring all officers to remain on duty past the end of their shift. LAPD leadership later admitted officers were overwhelmed, with the chief there describing the situation as escalating to, quote, disgusting levels of violence. Mainstream media coverage was accused of downplaying the riots, because they were, while internal law enforcement diversity and accountability offices were criticized for withholding severity reports. President Trump signed a memorandum federalizing 2,000 California National Guard troops under Title X, marking the first such deployment in the state since the Rodney King riots of '92. Later, another 2,000 were mobilized. The California governor there and the Attorney General Rob Bonta declared the federalization unlawful and filed a lawsuit against the Trump administration. In addition, 700 active duty U.S. Marines from Camp Pendleton were mobilized to support federal agents. The Department of Homeland Security released a statement warning that ICE agents are facing a 413% increase in assaults. Rioters surrounded a federal detention center at one point, more than 3,000 people there surrounding the officers. They slashed vehicle tires, physically assaulted ICE officers, and burnt down vehicles and threw rocks at police vehicles. DHS reported that ICE agents' family members had been doxxed and targeted. DHS urged the governor there and the mayor of LA to, quote, tone down dangerous rhetoric to reduce tensions and avoid further violence. Separately, businesses throughout LA closed early or were boarded up due to safety concerns and many daytime protests. They shifted from primarily the anti-ICE rhetoric to focusing more on broader demands for police accountability, expanded housing policies, and opposition to perceived discrimination in city practices. These daytime protests primarily remained peaceful, but as the day progressed, they turned violent. So on the legal front, a U.S. representative announced plans to introduce legislation to formally designate Antifa as a terrorist organization. The FBI launched a criminal conspiracy investigation targeting those funding and coordinating the violent protests in L.A. and across the country. Authorities said that they would prosecute anyone responsible for assaulting federal officers or destroying government property. And of course, that situation is still ongoing. A nationwide protest called the No Kings Rally on June 14th organized events in 1,500 cities and is supported by 200 plus far-left and mainstream Democratic groups. It targets the Trump administration and coincides with the Army's 250th birthday parade. Organizers include ACLU, Bernie Sanders, and Black Lives Matter affiliates. While most protests are expected to be peaceful, far-left groups may escalate actions. The public is warned to avoid impacted areas, and the event is expected to be the largest anti-Trump demonstration to date. Also, bear in mind that pro-Palestinian protest and LGBT rights events continue, but are now the minority as anti-Trump and anti-ICE demonstrations have begun garnering the largest crowds. Still, the new majority protests continue to draw Palestinian and trans activists, as their signage and banners can still be found at such events. And let's finish up here with legal updates, most of these related to Florida. On June 2nd, the governor there in Florida signed SB 322 and SB 606. So 322 targets unauthorized occupants of commercial buildings, while 606 blocks long-term hotel guests from falsely claiming residency. These laws expanded a 2024 bill that focused on private homes. The measure defines police responsibilities and criminalizes fraudulent listings. The hotel law prevents squatters from exploiting legal gray areas in hospitality. A Florida law banning social media for minors under 14 while requiring parental consent for 14 to 15-year-olds was blocked by a federal court. The judge issued a preliminary injunction citing constitutional rights. The governor there signed the law in 2024 as part of a child safety legislation. The court found it likely violates First Amendment protections. The case may continue, but enforcement is paused for now. That's it for this week's summary of recent developments. Remember that these briefings are delivered in real time to GRAYMAN briefing subscribers sent via the Telegram and Signal apps, and also via weekly emails. Please interact with this broadcast to help increase engagement and views. Thanks for listening, and as always, remain aware, be vigilant, and stay safe.